Hello.
She hit the record button real quick.
I did it ahead of time. I was like, "I'm not even gonna mess that up again."
Yeah, I know. I've done that quite a few times with clients where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna record the reading," and then at the end, I'm like, "Oh my god, I like somehow didn't hit the record button, or like I don't know what happened." Mercury plays tricks on us sometimes, but
Yes, I was so devastated, but thank you for coming back and doing it again. I
oh
really
yeah, it's like
appreciate
not a big deal. I have Mercury retrograde, so I'm used to doing things 2 times or 3 times.
it.
I'm used to it's like a process. How are you? Good morning.
I'm good. I'm a little sleepy, but we're gonna work through it.
I know, me too. I
How
was
are
up until
you?
like 2 in the morning,
Oh,
and then I woke up early and I was like, "Okay, you know what? Screw it. We're just gonna make it work."
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank
So
you. So we'll just start over. I made new questions because I wanted better questions, and it's so funny because I was sitting here and I was kind of going through everything, and I was on your live the other day, and you were like, "Be prepared," and it just made me think of that. Anyways, so you go by the soul sage, and we know that sages are often known for immense wisdom, intuition, and insight, and so that accurately aligns with your gifts. When did you first realize that you were spiritually gifted?
this started coming to me in 2019 and 2020 when I got my hands on tarot. So, I remember giving a close friend of mine who was a friend of mine from high school. We reconnected when I was in LA. And around 2019, 2020 is when I left banking, and then I started getting to tarot, astrology, all those things. So, but then like my best friend gifted me a deck in like January of 2020, and then I started having dreams of me doing readings for people. And I remember having this one specific dream where I was like floating in space on an island, like a piece of land, and there was a tree on it, and I was giving a reading to this little girl, and I remember telling her in the dream, she was like crying. I was telling her, "You just have to make it to 18. You just have to make it to 18. Once you're 18, you're gonna be free, you know?"
Mhm.
And I woke up from this dream and I was like, "What was that?" I kinda took it as a message, and I kept having dreams of, like, doing readings, like, with cards, like, random people I didn't even know. So I just took that as like, "Okay, well, let me, like, see if I could do something with this." And the way I am, I always try things to figure out if I'm good at it or not.
Yeah.
So, after I graduated college, I went back to school for music, and I, like, took chorus and singing classes, and I took piano classes. I always try my hand at things. I taught myself how to play guitar as well.
I did
I'm
not
not
know this
great at
about
it,
you.
right?
Uh-huh.
But I always try my hand at things, and I figure out, "Okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at?" And I just naturally took to tarot. So within 3 months of learning tarot, I asked people on my page, on the page that on my Instagram page, that were following me if they would want just, like, a free reading, you know? And so I did that reading for that friend and ended up being a 2-hour reading, and all the information that I was getting from the cards and like just intuitive inner knowing stuff, I didn't even know where it was coming from. I was just kind of trusting the process and whatever information was coming to me. Um, she was mind blown and she was like crying, and it was like really deep and really profound. And what was interesting is her mom came through, which who had passed away, and she had all these messages for her. And that so what was also interesting about that is in the very beginning, like in 2019, 2020, I was also having like weird mediumship stuff happening with readings, and I was having people in my own family coming to me in my dreams as well. It was a very profound year, like 2019, 2020, 2021. I wasn't working at all. I was totally in like my spiritual journey. I was fasting, for like 5 days. I did like a 5-day fast. I let go of, weed. I let go of video games. I let go of all my vices. I was just like, and I was going to church, and I was like praying, and I was really close to God, and I was really close to Jesus, and I was like just getting really faithful. And but all these other things, were happening as well. Like, even though I was like having this kind of like spiritual religious thing going on, I was also kind of awakening like gifts that I just didn't know about, I wasn't really aware of. And it was the tarot that kind of showed me like, "Hey, you're gifted. Like, you have something here."
So when you started having those gifts and the mediumship experiences, Did it ever alarm you? What was your first reaction?
No, I
Your
was so
friends.
oh my god, I love fantasy. I'm a Pisces rising. I'm a Neptune person,
That's
and I'm a
so
Jupiter
similar.
person.
Yeah.
I grew up in fantasy world, you know? I love Magic the Gathering. I love Pokemon. I love video games. I love, massive immersion video games. I love competitive video games. So I've always existed in other worlds even growing up. I even grew up gay. So, I was closeted, but I'm a gay man. And I came out when I was like 17, but because I grew up in a way that where, like, my identity and myself was really repressed, I couldn't, like I had my own inner world. So I really grew up like, my own imagination, and I remember reading Magic the Gathering books, I remember reading Lord of the Rings, there's, like, these fantasy books that I remember reading that had, like, a big impact on me, and it's like and my imagination has always been big, I've always been kind of like a creative person, I've always had, like, a strong visual sense as well, like, and so, one of the things when I'm, like, doing readings and stuff, I'm getting, like, images and impressions and pictures, I'll hear sounds, I'll smell things, a song name will come to me, words will actually come to me, all these different just, like, information, I'm just, like, open, it's just, like,
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, when all this started happening, I was like, "Ooh, magic is real."
Yeah.
Magic is real. Like, magic is real, you know? God is real,
Yeah.
spirit is real, Jesus is real, the planets and astrology is real, like, my reality expanded, and all of a sudden, what I thought was just a mundane existence or just, like, living in a world where magic was something that was only in my own imagination or my own world or something I could escape into or even through video games, whatever, I started to realize, like, "Wait a minute, like, the world is magical." And I'm a magical being. I'm a unicorn. I'm a sage, and that's where the name soul sage just came to me because it's like when I started looking at my own chart and reading, people's charts and reading my family's charts and looking at all the connections and everything, that meme where that guy's like pointing to the whiteboard and there's like all these
It's all the
crazy
stuff. Yes.
yeah, it's like that was me. I was just having these like mind-blowing epiphanies and you know, God was talking to me, spirit was talking to me, the planets were talking to me, my ancestors were talking to me, the cards, everything was talking to me. I'm like, everything is talking to me, everything's alive. And it just changed my world.
Yeah.
My whole world expanded. Like, I started in purpose, the idea of purpose, meaning life is purposeful, life is meaningful, everything is divinely ordered, everything is divinely ordained, everything has divine structure, everything is purposeful and intentional. God loves us. All these things started just coming to me,
Yeah.
right? And so it gave me a lot of confidence to trust my intuition and to trust what I was putting together. And and then also I've always been like an old soul. I've always been like I remember being like 7, 8 years old. I remember sitting on like, the play cages on the playground, like the
Oh,
big
yeah.
cages
Mhm.
where it's like
Mhm.
a dome.
Yeah.
I would climb to the top of it and I'd overlook all the kids playing and I would just be like sad and I'd be kind of like, why don't I feel this like innocence and this joy of like being a child? I felt like old, even at that age. I was like 8, 9 years old. I remember being in school looking like just over like alone. I was kind of like a loner, it wasn't until I got into middle school, high school that I became more social. My personality started to show up. When I was really young, I was really shy. I was really timid. I was really afraid of everything, and I just remember kind of having these thoughts of like, even very young, like, what is life? What is the mean? Why am I here? What are we doing here?
Yeah. What do you That's so funny when you say life is meaningful because when I was 13, there's a book by Bo Lozoff,
Mm.
and it's called It's a Meaningful Life, It Just Takes Practice, and that's what got me going into, like, all the spirituality, but
At 13, I wish I would have read something like that at 13.
well, I think because I was around my grandma, and she went to Unity Church, and they had, like, books on sale when you would leave, and there was, like, this book, and I was like, "I want that one." I don't even think I knew what it was about, but I ended up
Oh,
reading it, and it kinda opened my mind up, but so I never knew that you were shy or anything growing up. What
oh,
changed? Because you, to me, are super outgoing. You're gonna
yeah.
say what you have to say. What do you think helped you overcome that shyness and be more outspoken and just completely
Um,
authentic in yourself?
I grew up in a really repressed, controlled environment. Like my mom, I have a Capricorn moon, and Capricorn is ruled by planet Saturn, and Saturn's a planet of kind of control. And
Right.
so I growing up, I was very, like, sheltered.
Mm.
I didn't go outside that often, and when I did, I was, like, treated, like, as a very sensitive child, you know?
Okay.
And so I wasn't exposed to a lot of things, and so the lack of exposure and kind of like my mom and my grandma telling me the world is a scary place and everything is dangerous, you know, "Oh, don't talk to strangers, you know, you can get stolen off the street. Oh, you know, there's" like, just things that they would tell me just to scare me, to keep me, like, but it, and I looking back on it, I know why. It's because, when you're the firstborn son and, like, it's like there's or firstborn child, some parents can be overprotective, and they can be like they wanna just protect, but it becomes to a point where it's extreme and it deprives the child from experience. I have to talk to a lot of my, parental clients about this, especially, like, Cancer, Capricorn, clients,
Capricorn.
because
Mm.
there's a lot of, like, the control is protection.
Yeah.
It's the parent being afraid of not having control over their child's safety a lot of
Right.
times, right? So that's why the extreme so for me, like, I didn't really step into my being or start to explore myself till I went to college. I was like
Mm.
17. Um, that's, when my parents dropped me off at UC Santa, I went to UC Santa Cruz in California.
Mm.
I called them when they were on the driving back from dropping me off, and I came out to them, and when I came out in college, those 4 years of college really allowed me to be who I was and figure out who I wanna be, and it was kind of weird because, like, when you're an LGBT person, especially if you grow up closeted, there's a real disconnect from the identity a lot of times, and there's a
Yeah.
real disconnect from the self, and, I realized in college that a lot of the ways that I was just performing, or a lot of it was just kinda, like, trauma informed, or a lot of it was not my choice.
Okay.
And I think this is like the power of a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio sun, I have a Scorpio stellium. Is like if I want to transform and change and not be this person or not have these behaviors or characteristics, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So, in college, I was like, I'm not the shy, timid person. Like, that's like I was raised to be afraid of the world, but I had to overcome a lot of fears of
Yeah.
of new things. I had a lot of social anxiety when I got to college. I had a lot of social anxiety, and I was very insecure because I was always performing. I didn't know who I was, right? So I got to kind of like, I met, queer friends, and, I started going out and having fun, and I started like, just doing my thing, and it kind of just opened me up as a person. It kind of opened up my personality, my character. The other thing that helped was when after I graduated, I went into banking, and in banking, I really cultivated my ability to connect with people and to feel confident in connecting with people. You know, I was a banker, so, building one-on-one relationships with people and asking questions and profiling and all of this, like that helped me hone my personality and helped me be more comfortable with connecting to people. Well, even when I was in banking, I would get intimidated by people randomly. Like, I get intimidated by rich people. I would
Oh,
get intimidated by old people sometimes, or sometimes people would come in and they just have a really aggressive personality, and I'd be like, "Ugh." But I've had to really work on, I'm 30, how old am I now? 37, 38. I've had to work on my I have to work on my character. I've had to overcome shyness and timidness. I've also had to overcome being overly agreeable, overly submissive to others, like, oh, avoiding conflict. I have a weak Mars. So I've had to learn how to embrace conflict. I've had to learn how to stand up for myself and to be kind of let my passions go and to also trust in my own inner knowing and my own decisions and in my own judgments, my own morals. I look around the world, I'm like, all y'all are sinners. All of y'all are liars. All y'all, I go to church and I'm like, hypocrite, hypocrite, hypocrite. And I have to trust in my judgment
yeah.
because, like, we could, if you live in a world where everyone's looking up in the sky and they're saying the sky is red and you look up and you're like, I see blue,
Mhm.
you have to trust yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have
Yeah.
to have conviction. And so I've had to overcome a lot of identity stuff. It's been
Yeah.
a transformative journey.
So one of the biggest things I've learned from you is that conviction and what we believe is essential to our spiritual health. And
Hmm.
so in order to have that conviction, we have to have self-trust for our
Yeah.
intuition.
Yes.
So if someone struggles with self-trust or has wounds around self-trust, what wisdom can you offer for that?
I would tell them to stop consulting people when making choices and decisions, to start listening to themselves, is
Mhm,
come up with a decision-making process
mhm,
to where they could build confidence behind their own decision making. This is a big part of personal responsibility and personal development and kind of growing up and becoming an adult. And this is also what astrology teaches us through the planet Saturn, right? Around, we go through Saturn transits every 7 to 8 years. So 7 to 8 years old, 13 to 14, and then 21 to 22, and then 27 to 30. So we go, and Saturn is a planet that, what does he want us to do? Take responsibility and accountability for ourselves. And when we take responsibility and accountability for ourselves, what do we develop? We develop autonomy, and then Saturn sets us free from the codependent connections a lot of times that we have with others, especially financially. This is one of the things that's so interesting is like personal accountability, personal responsibility also allows you to be independent, and a lot of us, we don't even realize how we're raised to be codependent, right? Like, for instance, I was raised in a very controlling environment. So I was taught that you need to do my mom taught me, you need to do what I tell you. What you want doesn't matter. Your decisions, your choices, your desires, you push those to the side because your role is to be the best that I think you could be, to
mm,
follow my rules,
mm.
okay, and to live up to my expectations. My mom projected a lot of her own lack onto me.
Very
So,
relatable. Uh-huh.
so she's like, oh, she could, college and schooling was hard for her. It was
Yeah,
easy for me. So she's like, you're going to college and
mhm,
you're going to get straight A's and I'm going to force you to do it. If
yeah,
you don't do it, I'm punishing you. Right. So there's been even with my mom, I've had to put up boundaries around my own decision making and choices. That was my first lesson. That was the first person I had to resist. If I couldn't free myself from mom's authority, I wasn't going to be able to do my thing. And
yeah,
so that first rebellion for me and that first kind of like boundary setting was with my mother. And my mom is my best friend, and now she's my best friend, but not back then.
not back
Back
then.
then she was the prison warden.
Yeah,
Now we're close, but I've had to kind of really fight for myself, stand
yeah,
up for myself, like, and push back, and I'm like, I'm gonna argue with you if
mhm,
I think you did something that's wrong, or if you come to me and I think that's not right or incorrect, or if I think
yeah,
that is, there's like, I'm not afraid to argue and fight for myself and assert myself, but I've had to cultivate it, and
yeah.
yeah.
Do you have to find a way to stay grounded with that? Because for me, I have what did we say? I have, Neptune next to my sun?
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
And
It's hard.
so
Yeah, it can be hard.
yeah, and so sometimes that line can get blurred where there's, like, a little bit of delusion. I'm like, "Oop, don't wanna be too much," or am I overstepping because that Neptune comes in and, it messes with your identity. And
It
so is
does,
there
yes.
anything you do, like, to stay grounded so that you kinda stay in bounds, but you're still honoring your self-trust and your intuition without just going to the extreme
Yeah.
sense?
It's the extreme of identity is like ego and pride,
Yeah.
arrogance,
Mhm.
like thinking too highly of ourselves or thinking that, and then that also leads to selfishness and greed, so we live in a society, especially in the Western culture and here in America, where the ego is uh celebrated and the ego is more
Yeah.
important than the community and the other. And we can see that because we have a narcissistic president right now in the States, and we
Yeah.
have a pattern of celebrating narcissistic leaders and celebrating people that, accumulate power in a very prideful, arrogant way. And people also, there's also like this weird hierarchy around certain identities are more privileged or more better
Mhm.
than others. And
Right.
that's the history of the United States going from the very inception of it, right?
Mhm.
Like, we're more privileged because we have more technology, we have a better religion, we're smarter than you, have more resources, we have guns, right? So, it's kind of built into the Western mind, the ego and the pride. So, one of the things that I always have to remind myself is to be humble
Mhm.
and to be kind and to think about the other before I think about myself, but I grew up like that.
Yeah.
I grew up because I grew up closeted and grew up repressing myself. I always grew up thinking about the other and accommodating the other
Mhm.
because I wanted to hide, I didn't wanna be seen,
Yeah.
you know? I didn't wanna be caught, right? "Oh, I don't wanna be accused of being gay, so let me just hide and let me just go ahead and acquiesce into other people's stuff and kind of follow other people's things," right?
Yeah.
So, I think it's a but we have to straight if you have a weak ego, like, and
Mhm.
you can see astrology tells us this, right? The sun is the planet of the ego,
Yeah.
and the sun is the planet of our willpower and our identity. And when the sun is weak, when it's in the 12th house, when it's in Libra, when it's in Aquarius, when it's in the 8th house, when it's afflicted by Saturn, or when it's conjunct Neptune, you know, um, the identity in the self is going to be weak. So
Yeah.
those people, they need to cultivate,
Mhm.
confidence, courageousness, and a little bit of pride around their work and around their self-expression and around, their creativity. Because the sun is also the planet of creativity. It's this planet of will. It's also the planet of visibility.
Yeah.
It's the planet of the king and the queen. So it's the most visible planet in the sky. When the sun is out, you can't see any other planet or any other star. That's how powerful and that's how much space the sun takes up, right? So when we are living in our sun in a good, healthy way,
Mhm.
we're not arrogant or prideful, but we're also not shy and timid and, lacking in confidence. It's a balance. It's
Yeah.
balance, you know?
Do you think it helped you when you mentioned you talked to your parents, you came out, you went to college, and you got around more people who were queer, and you felt more yourself?
Oh,
And then
yes,
yeah.
astrology even shows us this, right? Opposite of Leo and the sun, the sign of identity is what? Aquarius and
Mhm.
Saturn, which is the sign of friends and community
Mm,
and the people
mhm.
that you surround you. This is why it's so funny. Like you could just think back in high school, you could think about these groups, these little pods of friends.
Yeah.
And there was a skater people, right?
Yep.
There was the sports people. They all look like each other. They all dress alike. They all end up becoming like the
Yeah.
same, like mirrors of one another,
Mhm.
right? So who we surround ourselves with, we become, we end up identifying with, and we don't realize it's a very subconscious, unconscious way that this happens. It's a slow process where the people that you are surrounded with, you adopt their identity. So I
Mhm.
surrounded myself with people that were just so themselves and so proud of being themselves. And, I was at the LGBT center in college. I
Yeah.
started volunteering there and I ended up getting really close to, uh, not the director, but the assistant to the director. Me and her got really close. Her name was Tam. I love her. She's amazing. But so I had to surround myself with people that reflect who I am. It's kind of hard sometimes though, because sometimes, like even on my spiritual journey and stuff like this, I kind of, my identity as like a spiritual worker and as like a divinator and as like a sage and like, a wise man and all this stuff. That's been very much cultivated in isolation.
Mhm.
And it's been hard to find community and connection in a spiritual way. And I think a big part of the spiritual journey is about um, disconnect from the material world and disconnect from others. And at some point, to get to know yourself, you have to sit with yourself and be alone with yourself and sit with your thoughts and sit with your desires and sit with your fears and sit with your apprehensions. And there's like a big part of true spiritual growth is self-discovery and
Yeah.
being in honesty, not lying to yourself about who you are. There along my path of like, my spiritual becoming and stuff, even before, like even when I graduated college, there's been moments where I had to be like, I do not like this part about myself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I have to work through this and I have to change this because this is not who I want to be, you know? And I
Yeah.
have these moments all the time, I have these not all the time, but
A
where
lot. It
it
happens.
like they come up and they come up randomly and they come up in situations where spirit is showing me like, "Hey, Louie, look at look at the mirror, maybe
Mhm.
this isn't about them, maybe this is about you, you
Yeah.
know?" And that
Yeah.
can be hard, but it's so important to be
Yeah,
keep.
I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with because it's the shadow work, and
Yes.
a lot of people don't want to face the shadow. I know for a long time I denied it. I pretended it didn't exist.
Yeah.
And then it caused me some problems because I was in such denial. But I think we have to look at ourselves, and I think that we have to give ourselves enough grace because if you don't and you don't allow yourself to be self-aware, then how do you grow from it? You know?
Exactly. How do you
Um
get from it? I
and
wanted
you
to I
Yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
real quick before you ask the next
Yeah.
question, I wanna because this all started from you asking me what are some ways that people can, like, cultivate,
Mhm.
like, confidence in their decision making of themselves.
Right.
I wanted to before I forget it, I wanted to add that I'll add this onto it. Share your creativity with the world,
Mm.
share your talents with the world, get used to public speaking.
Yeah.
There's great, uh, public speaking club that is all around the world. It's called Toastmasters. I highly recommend that. It's a public speaking group where you go in front of people and you give speeches. You have to practice sharing your sun and being in the light, you know?
Mhm.
And this is even, like, taking the stage sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, a
Yeah,
lot of people, they because they're so, they don't wanna be judged, they don't wanna face judgment from people, and they don't want to be criticized and whatever. They have a really hard time putting themselves in the light, and they're
yeah,
really and their ego is very fragile, very sensitive. And we know these people because the moment you compliment them, even if you give them a compliment, they'll take offense, you know? They're very sensitive, when it comes to their self or their self-perception or their identity, but we have to develop strength of character and strength of identity. You have to know yourself so well that even when someone tells you, "Oh, you're a liar, you're a thief," you know, "You're a terrible person," you know, "No, I'm not. I'm a good person." You
yeah.
know, I've had so many people along this journey, my spiritual journey, that are like, "You can't believe in God. You can't believe in Jesus and do astrology and do tarot."
Oh,
And you know
yeah.
what I tell them? "Who the hell are you to
Yeah.
tell me who to believe and what to
Yeah.
believe in?"
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, why do you feel so threatened by the fact that I love God and I'm close to Jesus and I love tarot, and this is the way that God talks to me through the cards, through the planets, right? And what I've realized is so many people, religious people, they crave a deep relationship with God, but
Yeah.
they're also afraid and they're stuck in their ignorance.
Yeah.
They're
And they don't
stuck
wanna
in the,
step out of that box.
they
I
want to
was
step
one of
out of
those
the
people for
box.
a very long time.
They don't wanna be curious, they don't wanna ask questions, they don't wanna critically think, they just accept whatever they're fed, and then they're going to these churches and they're following these pastors and priests that
Yeah.
are raping, stealing, thieving, sleeping with
Yeah.
people in the congregation, lying, dragging politics into places where they shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Being judgmental, you know, being prejudiced, being
Yeah.
giving using religion to validate all these horrible, terrible things. Go read the New Testament. Go read what Jesus said.
Mhm.
It's very clear. It's very easy. It's very
Yeah.
simple to understand what is right and what is wrong. So a big part of my kind of like conviction with self as well has also been having to trust in my moral perception
Yeah.
and what's right and what's wrong, you know?
Yes.
Because it's so it's so cloudy right now. A lot
Yeah.
of people's hearts are blinded by ignorance and
Mhm.
prejudice and pride and arrogance and entitlement and racism and sexism and bigotry and all the things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times religion gets people, they're locked in fear, and so they
Mm.
don't wanna step out and explore. And I'm grateful because with my situation, I was a big, like, Bible thumper, back in the day, like
Yeah.
2010, 2011. And, when I went through my Saturn return, it was very, very difficult. And that's what got me to have my ability to step outside of religion and step outside of that box. Well, when I went through my Saturn return, lost my kids, I had a full on breakdown. I said, I don't believe in God anymore. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And what brought me back to God was astrology. And
Mm.
so when somebody tries to tell me I can't do both or I can't believe in both because I've dealt with that from a partner, um, I kind of think back to that experience and it's like, I don't think that people can speak for a life that they haven't lived, you
Yeah.
know? And so if
Agree.
I've had the experience and I've learned some lessons or been shown some things, then um, I think we have to allow ourselves to step outside of the conditioned fear. Uh,
Yes. True.
so I also wanted to ask you about astrology. I have come across astrologers who talk about manifestations through the natal chart as a healed person or an unhealed person. How do you think that somebody can overcome those challenges of what the unhealed version shows versus the healed,
Mm.
even when it comes to like relationship synastry? So if you've got two unhealed people and it's like, ooh, that's not going to work, but then say one or the both of them end up on that healed side of that sign because they
Yeah.
did the work.
Mhm.
Would you say that demonstrates how it's not fatalistic?
Definitely. I think this is Edgar Casey, actually, the famous psychic from the 1920s. So Edgar Casey was known as a sleeping psychic, and he would do like 6-hour channeled sessions where he would do body scans of people, and he'd come up with all these folklore remedies on how to heal their body, or he'd be able to find out what was wrong with them, like even people that have mysterious illnesses, right? So when
Mhm.
he was in the sleeping state, they had the idea to start asking him questions about just like the divine and God and spirit. And someone actually asked him questions about astrology. One of the questions was, you know, are the planets and his astrology more fate based or free will based? And he said, "Free will overcomes all limitations."
Yeah.
He's like, "The power of the will is the gift to God, and it's the strongest gift that we've been given."
Mm.
And, when we subject ourselves to fate, you know what happens? Apathy sets in.
Oh, yeah.
So when we're like, "Oh, Jesus, take the wheel, fuck it,"
Mhm.
what we don't realize is chaos takes over, and then the planets, they're gonna do what they want with you. And not all the planets, not all the planets love us and they mean well,
Yeah.
but some of the planets are here to teach us a little bit more difficult lessons than others. Some
Shout
of
out
us
Saturn and
some of the
Mars.
plan Yes, Saturn and Mars, and even Pluto and Uranus,
Oh, yeah.
Neptune,
Yeah.
what's interesting about the outer planets, Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune is they exist out of Saturn's authority. So they break the rules of
Mm.
society, and we
Never
see
thought
a
about
lot of people that are Pluto, Uranus, Neptune people, they live outside of society, or they defy society's expectations, or, they could be at the very top or the very bottom of society a lot of
that.
times, right? In extremes. But yeah, Saturn and Mars, they're the punishers, they're the judges, they're the criminals, and
Mm.
they're the sinners, they're the archetypes of evil, right? Where Venus and Jupiter are the archetypes of good, redemption, heroism, peace, love, kindness, respect, marriage, forgiveness, benevolence, all the goodness in the world. So it's a very delicate balance between good and bad, but what are you going to choose is what God is asking us every day. And the planets
Right.
ask us every day, are you going to do this? Are you going to go high? Or are you going to go low?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And especially in synastry, when we come into contact with certain people, you know, um, our chart is going to trigger certain things in their chart.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? We're gonna either bring out the best of each other or bring out the worst of each other. But the most important thing is both people need to consciously decide to activate their free will to work on the problems and the issues to make the relationship and the connection better. Free will and choice is so important as a human being, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to personal responsibility, and you have a lot of people that are like, "Ah, this is who I am, I'm never going to change,
Yeah.
I'm just an angry person, I'm always depressed, I'm always sad,
Mhm.
I'm just a mean person." But it's like,
Yeah.
no, you are choosing that. Every day you decide to stay the same, you reinforce that identity, and change is going to get farther and farther away from you. Yeah, it has to be it has to be a proactive thing that we do, right? We're gonna have certain predispositions in our chart that, are gonna be easy or hard to overcome. And the chart tells us what is gonna be the hardest thing in your life, what is gonna be the easiest thing in your life. What are the things you have no control over that are fate-based? What are the things that you have more agency over? Or what are the things that you can shift the dial? You can turn the wheel a little bit. You know what I mean? There are fated things that we have no control over. We can't choose our parent. Well, we choose our parents, it depends on what you believe, and there's a lot of,
Yeah,
you
well,
know
that can go down a whole rabbit hole.
yeah, that's like
Yeah.
one other thing,
Yeah.
right? But when we're born into this life, we're born with certain conditions. The place that we live in, the parents that we're born to, everything before like the age of 18 really kind of a lot of it is very faded and very destined. Even like, and you see this even with child celebrities. You see they have early success written in their chart at 4 or 5 years old, 3 years old. They're already, a celebrity in some type of way. And it's like, these are things that are scripted and written, but as time goes on, Saturn rules time, Saturn rules personal responsibility, autonomy. Saturn and the sun have a lot to do with free will and agency. So the more time that you're here on Earth, the more time you're given to evolve and change and do something different and
Yeah.
go against fate and tap into more free will. And this is why, when we're understanding life chap because astrology is so amazing at breaking down your life chapters and breaking down the seasons of your life. As you get older, especially after you go through your first Saturn return at 30, you get kind of freed a little bit. And now it's like, okay, what are you gonna do with the time that you've been given? Now you don't have the confines, you don't have the fate-based thing a lot. You have your career by then maybe, or you're independent by then maybe, or maybe you're married, whatever. But by then it's like, okay, what are you gonna do? Who are you gonna be?
Yeah.
You have choice and agency where you didn't a lot of times from the age of 0 to 30, especially the ages of like 0 to 20, 0 to 18, when you're a child. You don't really have a lot of agency or authority in real life. You're subjected to the whims of your parents, your caretakers, sometimes even society. I think about kids that get lost in the foster system and, and they get put into these houses and they get pulled into systems where they have no personal authority or control over themselves. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, when it comes to claiming our free will, it's our responsibility to do it, and the people that do it the most are the most successful, and they get the most out of life, and they get the most out of the chart. And
Yeah.
and there's people that have really hard chart, like Oprah. Oprah's birth chart, you
It
don't want it.
I'm gonna look
You
at
don't
her
want that chart.
later.
Also, Justin Bieber, you don't
Oh,
want that
yeah.
chart, okay?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many Kurt Cobain, I promise you, you don't want that chart, okay? Right? But what do these people do? They turn lemons into lemonade. We
Yeah.
could do it. We could
Yeah.
do it. Some people, they want it more. They hunger for it more. They desire it more. But also, who's to say that a lot of their success, there's also luck and fate and destiny that does meet you on the way. So it's a very delicate balance between like
Mhm.
fate and destiny, or
The
fate.
way I like to think about it, I feel like your chart is fatalistic in the sense of it's gonna show these different things, like, you're gonna have these different signatures, but the
Mhm,
way that you get there through your free will, it's either gonna take you longer
mhm.
or you're gonna make the choice to do what needs to be done.
Putting it simply, it's like when you're born, you're given a certain amount of Legos. These
Okay.
are the Legos that you're given.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have to decide what you're gonna build with there.
Mm.
And maybe your chart says, you know, this is the building or this is the type of thing you should have, or this is, maybe it does come with some booklets of like, I think the chart is kind of like a booklet as well of the potential of the things that we can build, like, okay, do you want to build, a dentistry career? Do you want to build a family? Do you want to build, confidence and identity? Do you want to build a life that's more spiritual? Do you want to build a life that's more intellectual? Do you want to be a creative artist person? The chart will give us indications of our natural predisposition to the things that we want to build with the Lego set that we're given, right? But it's like when you're given the Lego set, it's like it's up to you to what you want to build. And most people, they don't build anything. I hate to say it, or they build very little.
Yeah.
They don't really use all the pieces that they've been given because they're not fully developing themselves and not pushing their chart, pushing themselves to the limit just to see what can happen and just to see what they could do. A lot of people they sell themselves short, they give up, and also, you know, not everyone. This is the truth, and I'm going to say this: not everyone can be great.
Yeah.
There's not enough space, in the collective consciousness,
I don't think
for,
everyone's meant to.
not
Like,
everyone's
when you
meant
think of
to.
it from the a standpoint of the collective,
Yes,
we all have a part to play, and some people,
yes,
that's their
we
part,
do.
is to
And
not be
in
successful.
reincarnation, though, right? In one life, we may be a king, and in one life, we may be a peasant.
Mhm.
Right? And this is how it works, and it's so
Yeah.
interesting because the lives that we live that are excessively humble or small sometimes are meant to teach us, like, what's important is your kid. What's
Yeah.
important is your husband. You have to work on these smaller things before you can do the greater things a lot of times, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's all everyone has this is why we also can't compare our life to other people because
Right.
everyone has their own individual chart. Everyone has their own thumbprint. Everybody has their own life plan. Everybody has their own blueprint.
Mhm.
And everyone looks different. That's why it's important that we have to get to know ourselves. We have to study our chart. We have to, search our desires. We have to go deep within ourselves to uncover what do I love? What
Yeah.
am I good at? What do I want to build with the Legos I've been given?
Yeah.
We're all given a deck of cards in the beginning, and the deck of cards that we're given, we have no control over a lot of times. But how are you gonna play your hand?
Yeah.
How are you gonna play the game with what
Yeah.
you've been given? That's the big test. That's a big question.
And that's what I love about astrology too, because I feel like it gives you the self-awareness. And so for me, that's I tie it all together with Hope, my brand, the Hope Wellness Collective. I tie it all together because I've had all these like, oh, I want to be this or I want to be that or I think maybe I'll be this, even as a kid. When I grow up, I feel like I might want to this, I might want to that. Well, as I got older and I started looking into astrology, even recently, last year when you did my reading, there are things that I learned that those weren't just hunches. And so for me, it gives you the inspiration to pursue those things because I've had more hope inspired and instilled in me through the astrology. How can that not be of God?
How can that
So
not be it's
yeah,
like literally. I was watching this, Christopher Renstrom, who's
What's the
he's
name?
a his name is Christopher Renstrom. He's an astrologer. He mostly does, like, evolutionary astrology, but he was on a podcast. I was watching a podcast last night. He was on a podcast, and one of the things he was saying is, like, he's like, "The birth chart is like the movie script that we've been given,
Mhm.
and when you're reading a chart, it's like you're reading someone's movie, like you're reading a script of their life, of their movie, and it's fascinating because, you know, as the chart unfolds over time, we can see how people influence like they influence how it grows, how they do. So if you think of the chart as if you think of the birth chart as a seed, you
Okay.
know, when you have a seed, most of us that don't know anything about plants, like myself, I don't know anything about plants or seeds. I wouldn't be able to tell you if this seed was gonna be a little tiny plant this big,
Mm,
or if this seed was gonna be a giant ass sequoia tree. I'd
okay.
have no idea between the 2. I would be like, I don't even looking at the seeds, I'm like, "These are both just small seeds to me."
Yeah.
So, what it really says is the seed, which is the chart, is the potential.
Mm,
What it grows into and how big it can be, that has a lot to do with us.
yeah.
How we develop, how we grow as a tree. And trees are said to be mirrors of the human soul. Trees, we have a deep, it's so interesting because in Buddhism, they say that, before we incarnate as a human being, we have to live as a tree.
I didn't know
And
that.
you know what
Okay.
living as a tree is supposed to be? It's supposed to teach us patience.
Okay.
Supposed
Yeah.
to teach us patience and staying and observance.
Rooted. Yeah.
Being rooted, yes. And that's why trees are so sacred. And this is why the Buddha came to enlightenment under what? A Bodhi tree, right? And so many gurus and sages, they meditate with trees, they meditate, in nature, they go to caves. Because, these spaces and these things are also symbolic and they're metaphorical and they also reflective in us. So when I think of like, a germinating seed and, that's how I think about the chart. I think about the chart is like, what's it going to grow into? How are you going to grow it? And we also got to think, it's like, where is the seed planted? How much sun is it getting? What are we feeding it? Right. If you're feeding your tree, if you're feeding your spirit, you're feeding your life, bad toxic things, you're partying, you're doing drugs all the time, you're having too much sex, you're stealing, you're thieving,
Yeah.
you're not gonna grow, and the plant is probably gonna die at some point. So, like, you're gonna get sick, something.
Yeah.
But if you're, like, pouring love and goodness, and you're eating good, and you're taking care of yourself, and you're, like, in alignment with your path, and you're responsible, and all this, your tree's gonna grow big and bright. It's gonna
Yeah.
shine. It's gonna, be a canopy. And then it also and then we start thinking of the family tree. We start thinking of seedlings, and we start thinking of, the growth, the constant. It's so crazy because I always think about like, you know, when it comes to families and generational inheritance and like generations that come and go,
Uh-huh.
there's always a generation that's living. But it's this cycle of life with the tree. It's like, the tree dies and then the babies come, and then it's just this constant
Yeah.
process of death and rebirth that happens through the family lineage. It's a
Yeah.
very beautiful thing. And it's cool because astrology will also show you what you inherited from your parents and from your next of kin or from, your ancestors. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So speaking of generational things and lineage, when you look at a chart, can you see the generational curse breakers in the family? Like, have
Oh,
you
for sure.
ever yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Most people that come to me are the generational curse breakers.
Interesting.
They're because a lot of the ones that come to me, the majority of people, their family is not about the occult. They're not about the astrology.
Oh
And
yeah.
and astrology is showing, it's funny because a lot of people when they start getting into astrology and looking at their parents' charts or looking at their family member charts, are like, oh, that's why they're like this. Oh, that's why it's so toxic. Oh, that's why they're so
Yeah.
difficult or so hard. I think the beautiful thing that astrology has done for me, it's also allowed me to be more compassionate with my
Yeah.
family, with my mom and my dad, with
Yeah.
people, with my brother even, because I look at their chart and I'm like, this is a hard chart.
Yeah.
I can see why their behavior is like this. I can see why they have, it's so like my brother and my mom, they both have anger stuff. My mom's older now, so she's gotten over a lot of it, but
Yeah.
they have the same exact planetary signature
Mhm.
in both of their charts. And this is not coincidence. The chances of this happening are like 1 in a million. What are the chances that my brother and my mom are going to have the same Mars and Cancer, almost at the same degree,
Mhm.
squaring Mercury and squaring the moon?
Yeah.
what are the chances, right? And then my brother's having a baby, um, very soon in September, and guess where Mars is gonna be at when that baby comes? In Cancer. So the baby's also gonna have Mars and Cancer. So it's the karmic inheritance of the Mars and Cancer, which is the anger, emotional frustration and getting extremely angry. Mars is in detriment in Cancer or in fall in Cancer. Mars is weak in Cancer because Mars, which is the planet of anger and war, is challenged in the moon in
Yeah.
Cancer, the sign of emotion and feeling. You know, so it's so interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Can you clarify? Because like what you just said with the Mars and Cancer, um, I see people make jokes like, and I think we talked about this before, where they say, "Oh, like I'm not going to blame my behavior on this," but I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah, I think we have a natural predisposition to certain characteristics.
Yeah.
And the chart will tell us if someone is prone to lying, if someone is prone to being deceitful or dishonest, or if someone is also prone to a survival way of living to where they're like me over other people,
Yeah.
depending on upbringing. And the chart will tell us where we have our flaws and where we have our setbacks. You could just look to your Saturn placement. Your Saturn
Yeah.
placement alone will tell you where you suffer and where there's limitation and where there's hardship in your life, right? So, but the thing that astrology does is it brings these things into our awareness because you can't change what you cannot see. What you can't see within yourself, what you can't observe about yourself, what you can't know about yourself, you're not going to be able to change, right? And uh, and this is one of the things I always say with the ego and identity and it being connected to the sun is blind to itself.
Word.
The sun is
Yeah.
so bright that it can't see itself. So the ego is the same way. We have this way of seeing ourselves as the hero in our own journey.
Mhm.
But can you also be honest when you are playing the villain in someone else's journey? And a lot of times the universe will cast us as the villain in other people's lives to teach them a lesson. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're being used by God and the divine as a direct vessel of teaching.
Yeah.
And the astrology will show us this, you know?
And do you
So,
feel like
mm,
that can be a good thing and a bad thing? Because there are times where you
oh
need to
yeah.
do some shadow work. You're the villain because you really need to, you're lacking self awareness, maybe. But
Hmm.
then, um, sometimes I feel like, what if it's karmic? And so then,
Yeah.
like, personally for me, I'm going through something right now where I feel like I wouldn't call myself a villain, but I feel like there's something karmic happening where someone is getting a lesson through me,
Yeah.
but I'm supposed to continue on exactly as I am. And I'm not being
Exactly.
mean or hateful or anything of
Yeah.
that nature,
Yeah.
but instead of trying to uh cater to their feelings and their emotions, I'm
Yeah.
just supposed to be. And so
You're
it's like
supposed
I'm
to be so that's why I said from their perception, you're
yeah,
the villain,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And this is why it's like when it comes to goodness and badness, when it comes to what is right and what is wrong,
Mhm.
we the way karma is unfolding,
Yeah.
like this is what Krishna says, this is what the Buddha says. There is no right and wrong, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
these things are just illusionary. But, if we are being tasked to be the person of justice in another person's life, and they're experiencing us as the villain, but we're the bringers of justice, we're the bringers of truth, we're the arbiters of punishment. Sometimes Saturn uses us. Like, guess what?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to be the one that punishes this person. You're gonna have to be the one that fires this person. You're gonna have to be the one that disciplines this person. I'm gonna do it, but I'm using you to get the work done,
Yeah.
right? We can have so bad, or like I have to do this hard thing, person.
Do you think you have to do shadow work to be able to differentiate between the 2 so that you're not walking around just being an asshole?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you do. You have to be very aware because and this is like goes back to kind of like conviction and trusting your own moral judgment and trusting in what you believe is good and what you believe is right,
Yeah,
and sometimes we have to really sit with ourselves and we have to kind of really question ourselves and we have to kind of be a little self-critical sometimes to be like, wait, you know what? could I have done that better? Could I have been
Yeah.
better in that situation? Or was that the only option? Because this person decided that they wanted to go to war. Sometimes people want to go to war with you and you have an
Yeah.
enemy. And when you have an enemy and you have to go to war and fight for yourself, it could be like you're fighting for your job, you're fighting for your kids, you're fighting for your money, you're fighting for your success, your career reputation sometimes. What are you gonna do? Just back down and fold? No.
Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta, and this is, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu text, it's like
Mhm.
kind of like it's like a version of it's like a Bible for
It's
them.
like
It's
they're
one of the
yeah.
religious texts.
Mhm.
One of the things that, Krishna tells Arjuna, Krishna is, kind of like one of their Jesus figures. He tells him, you have to go to war and fight, even if you don't want to, because
Mhm.
I've tasked you to, and so I think when we start to really, study a lot of spiritual religious scripture, even like, if you read like Thich Nhat Hanh and stuff, in
Mhm.
Buddhism, he's like, it's a part of our moral duty to fight for justice and truth and peace.
Yeah.
This is how it's sustained. Otherwise, the world's going to descend into disorder and chaos and selfishness.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the advocate of truth? Who's going to be the one that bears the sword? It's like that tells people, no, this is wrong.
Yeah. And
You
that's
know?
where I think that conviction comes into play. I think a good example that a lot of people might struggle with or can relate to is having boundaries. And then you have somebody trying to gaslight you that, oh, you're being a bitch. And it's like, well, no, I'm just having to stand my ground and stand in my truth. And so, I think that separates the difference of knowing I'm doing this for moral reasons. I'm doing it out of integrity and respect for myself. And we touched on this a little bit with the spiritual gifts when you came into discovering them. Um, some people, when they start feeling or experiencing that they are having these spiritual gifts, they are not comfortable with being the eccentric one. And then there's some people where it's like second nature and they don't care. They're just like, this is how I am. Do you ever see anything in a chart that kind of shows those things?
Yes.
Yeah.
People have a strong sun, and you could go meet a Leo.
Yeah.
People that have strong Leo energy, they don't care what people think about them.
Oh, yeah.
The
I
sun
have a
is
friend.
like, I'm here and this is who I am and look at me and it's
Hmm.
like confident and it's like when people have a strong sun, the sun in the 10th house in the midheaven, the sun on the ascendant,
Yeah.
and we see these people like J-Lo, Leo rising with Leo sun on the rising, like confident, they take up space, they know themselves. Um, so, yeah, you could see in the like, for me, I have, like, a night I'm, like everything's in the top of the chart for me.
Mm.
The top of the chart is, around the midheaven, the 10th house, 10 houses, 9, 10, 11. It's the most visible part of the chart. It's when I was born when the sun was high in the sky, when all
Yeah.
the planets were up in the sky. So, my chart tells me I don't mind being seen. I actually like it. I like
Yeah.
to be seen. I like to, to take the stand. I like to take the stage, but it's also shown in my chart. It's reflected in my
Yeah.
chart, right? And you'll see when people have, a lot of 8th house, 12th house stuff, or they have everything in the bottom of the chart, they're
Mhm.
more at home, they're more family oriented, they're more connected to their community, they're more connected to their kids. They're not trying to be outside in the world shining and growing or and glowing. They're trying to, you know, kind of do the more domestic thing a lot of times.
Yeah. Okay. Um, one other thing, so you're my favorite astrologer. And
Mhm,
so in my personal opinion, I look at you as the goat of astrology. You are very dedicated to your craft, that shows,
mhm.
and you have insane accuracy. I am living stuff in this moment that you read me last year. But there's also a light that you carry that I feel like creates space for people and it's empowering, it's inspiring, and it provides for hope. What else do you think sets you apart?
Think I really love people. I think
Yeah.
what sets me apart is my love and my compassion for people, and I really genuinely care. Like, even just saying the words is making me emotional. It's making my eyes tear up. I'm a Pisces rising. I'm a like very watery. I have a lot of water in my chart.
Yeah.
So
It's
if
like you
I
love you.
start crying right
Yeah.
now, you know why. But I have the love of Jesus in my heart.
Yeah.
And I've experienced the love of the divine. And I think when people have met God's love, when people really know God, they carry his love in their heart or her love, whatever you want to say, because I don't think God has a gender. I don't think God is a person. I think God is everything. It's all of us. We're all
Course.
interconnected.
Yeah.
But when you truly get to know God and meet God, and people that have met God that have met God, that know God, you know, that know spirit, that know the divine, they also know that it's all love, and we do everything from the place of love. And so all my work, especially when I'm with clients and my peoples, it all comes from a place of love. It's all sourced out of love. I'm not, if I could do this for free, where I didn't have to sustain myself, I didn't have to charge, I would, you know. But I'm a Scorpio sun and a Capricorn moon, and I have the North Node in second house. So I'm here to make money. I'm here to build. I'm here to build a legacy. And the only way to build legacy is through resources.
Right.
We have to hold mastery of the material world to accomplish what we're here to accomplish.
Exactly. Mhm.
So, like, for me, I think what sets me apart as an astrologer, as a tarot reader, is it's not just about the astrology and the tarot. These are just tools for me. I was even saying this like a few lives ago. I was like, I don't need to identify as an astrologer. The identity of being an astrologer isn't important to me because I don't identify with it. I have no pride or ego attached to it.
Mm.
Astrology is a tool for me.
Yeah.
It's a way that God talks to me. It's something that I gifted at and I happen to be good at. It's also a tool that's been given me to be able to help people and guide people and to be able to give their soul and their spirit guidance. Be able to give them guidance and to be able to give them hope around things that are going to be foreseen that I see for them. And so what I see for people is a lot of times what they see for themselves. I feel like most of the time I'm reading the desires of someone's heart and I'm just giving voice and giving clarity and giving validation to it. A lot of the things I tell people, they already know. They've already thought it, they already feel it. So when I tell it to them, they're like, "Oh my god, how do you know that?" Like, "I've been feeling that. I thought about that. Oh, I used to think about that when I was young, like, I saw myself, I had a dream of being a nurse and I never went and it's crazy that you're telling me that like nursing is coming to you as a career calling because that's something that I've always thought about doing and what I do is I empower people, I inspire people, I validate them, and being seen. I think all of us, we truly want to be seen, we wanna be witnessed, and we wanna be loved,
Yeah.
and that's the gift that I can give people beyond astrology and tarot, but I use astrology and tarot to see people, and to show them themselves. "Here, look at you. Look at you in this circle in this piece of paper," like, "This is you," right? And so
Yeah.
it's beautiful to be able to hold up a loving mirror to people. It's
Mhm.
beautiful to be able to, you know, show people just how divine they are and just how divinely orchestrated their life is.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful thing to be able to use astrology and tarot and my spiritual gifts to be able to guide people and give them the confidence to live their life and to do the things that many times they're afraid of doing or that they've been holding themselves back from. And I think that's what sets me apart as an astrologer and a tarot reader. Like, I'm a spiritual worker. I don't ide that's why I don't identify as astrologer and tarot reader. I'm like, I do those things, but I'm a spiritual worker because I work for the divine, I work for spirit, and these are just tools. And one day spirit may be like, "Okay, you don't need the astrology anymore. Now you're gonna be doing this. Now I need you for this." All right, I'm there. And I tell people this all the time. I did not wanna be an astrologer and tarot
Oh,
reader. There was never no moment in my life where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do astrology and tarot." It just
yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
It just
That's when you
organically
know.
fell into my lap.
Yeah.
It was like, "Here, you're gonna do this now because we need you to do this."
Yeah.
You know? So, I think that's what sets me apart is my love and compassion for people and my understanding of the work and how I don't have ego and pride attached to it, which is why, um, I'm proud of my work, yes, but I don't have prideful arrogance connected to it. I can be honest when I'm wrong. I can be honest when I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna be accurate 100% of the time. It's not because why? Only God is perfect,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
we are not. Perfection is it's something to chase and it's a good goal, but it's unrealistic and it's never gonna be attained. And we're never gonna know everything because why? The divine and creation and God is mysterious.
Yeah.
The mystery of life. I always think about, like, 'cause I grew up Catholic, and, in mass in the very beginning, they'd be like, "This is the mystery of faith." Like, and it was like this thing. It was like that line right there. "This is the mystery of faith" was like how we opened up, Sunday mass. And
Yeah.
it's like, and yes, it's a mystery. And I'm over here watching the priest do these rituals with like a
Oh,
cup
yeah.
and with like a knife. And I'm like, why, what are you doing a ritual for? Like, what's going on here? Right. So it's like, I have so many questions and I'm so mysterious and I'm so in, or, look at it's 11:11, right as someone texted me, my dad,
Oh,
11:11. But, you know, there's so many mysteries. Life is a mysterious thing,
yeah,
but the beauty is that, it's the mystery of God that's also full of love.
yeah,
And love is the truth, and love reveals, love shows us everything. And that's why I think I've been gifted with these talents, and why I've been able to take them to a different level, or why I've become so proficient, is because God knows that my heart is in the right place with my work, and my intention is good. My
yeah.
intention is to lead and guide people, and I've come across, readers that uh you can feel that they're that what they're doing, what they're telling you in a reading is more for them and not for you. It's
Mm,
more them wanting to just validate their own ego and their own knowing, and when they do that, guess what? They're never accurate. They never tell
yeah.
you what they're meant to hear because 'cause they're so focused on themselves.
They're letting their own stuff get in the way of the message that's intended to be said to that
Yes.
person.
And
Yeah,
they're not even tapping into the other person. They're so self-absorbed that they can't see outside of themselves to truly do the work. This is why a lot of tarot readers and astrologers are not accurate, you know?
no, that's interesting because I wonder too, sometimes I feel like people who have good discernment can pick up on that because when you don't resonate with somebody, you feel it.
And you feel it.
Right.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I wanna cancel clear a statement that I said. I said, "This is why a lot of" that's a very incorrect, false statement that I just said. I said, "A lot of astrologers, tarot readers are inaccurate," and that is not the truth.
There are
Um
some, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah,
What I meant to say is a lot of tarot readers and astrologers, their heart is not in the right place, or their spirit is not in the right place, and they're doing their work from a place of, self-validation, pride, or ego, or
okay.
they're doing their work from a place of survival and struggle, right?
Oh, okay.
And sometimes their intention, there's very gifted people that have bad
Yeah,
intentions as well. And we see this with all professions,
yeah.
there's professions that should require moral, ethical,
Mm,
spirit, like
mhm.
being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a judge. These are all professions where people there should be a moral standard.
Yeah, because
And
what
I
is your
and I feel this way
intention?
also about being a priest or being a pastor. I also feel this way about spiritual workers.
Yeah,
Your heart and your spirit have to be in the right place to do these jobs, because we see the consequences when people that are not deserving and not in the right place, like your spirit and the heart's not in the right place, in those positions, the damage that they do and
yeah,
the corruption that happens.
yeah,
You
because
know?
I think that, I agree with that because I feel like when it comes to things in the spirit realm, even if we can't visually see them, you can still carry something that you haven't dealt with. But before I let you go, because I know we're kinda getting to the end, one thing I wanted to touch on is your sense of humor. You are so hilarious to me. And so, and I think that ties into authenticity. Where do you think you get your sense of humor and
My dad is a funny guy. My
yeah,
dad's hilarious, and, my family, especially my dad's side, they're all funny. My grandma's hilarious.
yeah,
She used to crack jokes, and we laugh, and, my family, we all laugh a lot. We're very funny people, and for me, humor is, an educational tool, and let me explain.
okay,
So, when there's when we crack jokes, and when there's humor behind the way that we present our information or whatever,
yeah,
it actually gets people to lower their guard. It makes
yeah,
people feel safe,
mm,
and it makes people feel warm. Like when you laugh, I want you to pay attention to how you feel. Like you feel this warmth and this bubbly energy in you when you laugh, right?
yeah,
And so for me, laughter and humor is an expression of joy, and it taps into the energy of joy, and it makes people more receptive and more open to what I'm, putting, the information I'm giving or whatever, but it also keeps people engaged.
yeah,
People love humor. They want to laugh, and humor is also very ironic because, behind humor, a lot of times, there's a lot of sadness and a lot
Uh,
of truth. Humor has a way of, you know, giving a nice candy coating to truth and hard, difficult things sometimes.
yeah,
And I think I'm really good at using humor to soften the blow sometimes when I'm talking about difficult things because life is hard and difficult. I mean, I'm a Scorpio stellium with a Capricorn moon. And, I'm
yeah,
very like these are dark signs. These are
yeah,
signs that have a lot to do with endings and death and tragedy. And I always talk about that stuff too. I always talk about, difficult things,
yeah,
because I mean, if you wanna be a real spiritualist,
yep,
you have to also be able to look at the dark side of life, and you have to be honest with people around the dark side of life, you
yeah,
know? And so I think humor is a beautiful way of coping with that,
mhm,
and I think, humor, uh, it allows me to kind of, like, it helps people get more relaxed, helps people
yeah,
open up, helps people feel more safe, and also people learn better, actually. People
oh, yeah,
absorb information more and they learn better when they're in a receptive state where they're comfortable and they feel safe and things are, like, funny, and lighthearted.
so
I'm also a Jupiter person. Jupiter's a funny planet. I'm a Pisces
yeah,
rising, so, I'm also a Jupiter guy, and Jupiter's a funny planet. He likes to make people laugh, and Mercury's also a funny guy.
yeah,
Like Gemini's a very funny sign.
yeah,
Gemini, Sag, Pisces, these are funny signs.
yeah. Well, thank you, Louie, so much. Where can people find you if they wanna reach out to you or have a reading and connect?
So, you can find me on, Instagram at The Soul Sage. I
Okay,
think is it just The Soul Sage? Yeah, I'm The Soul Sage on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube.
okay,
You can search me on YouTube, I'm there. Both of them will take you to I have a link tree that will take you to my booking site. I don't have a website yet. I need to
okay,
work on there's a lot of structural things I need to work on. But, yeah, you can go to my link tree and you can book an appointment there and it takes you to my calendar where all my services are there. And, I do synastry, relationship readings. I do, transit readings, I do which kinda looks at what you're going through right now and timing of things. I do birth chart readings, which is the foundational chart reading, understand your life plan, your blueprint. I also do children's chart readings. I do generational readings. So we'll look at your family legacy. We'll look at multiple charts to kind of see what the karma is and stuff like this. So, but my experience is, been in a lot of different branches of astrology. So I started off with Hellenistic ancient astrology, started dabbling into evolutionary astrology, started learning about medical astrology, and now like Vedic and Eastern astrology has been really calling to me. So I have a very different, open-minded, organic approach to astrology. I'm not like so rigid and so like, oh, this is, the tradition that I follow. And
alright,
I'm very, very open minded. And I'm like, if it works and if it gives meaning to my clients and if I can use it as a tool, then I'm gonna learn it and I'm gonna use it, right? And
yeah,
so I think that's how we should be. I think the future of astrology like astrology is evolving right now. It's in a state of evolution and expansion. And there's all these different traditions that are like crossing each other and they're meeting each other and it's beautiful. And so I think yeah, like I think, astrology it's gonna increasingly become a tool of the future and it helps us read time. It helps us read the future. It's a
yeah,
beautiful thing.
yeah.
But I'm sorry, what was your original question?
No, that was it. We were just seeing where we could reach you, but my next
Oh
question.
yeah, where you can reach
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
But I was gonna ask you, do see, there's that sense of humor. And see, that wasn't even to make anybody comfortable, you're just funny. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm glad that yeah, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me. I think you are
And,
such a beautiful
oh,
soul and you are a light and you have
you.
so much to give and I just can't wait to see what else you build, Mrs. Hope Architect,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
The visibility is happening. You spoke that, in my chart too. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's starting to unfold. So thank you so much. And
Mwah.
I will talk
Love
to you
you.
soon. Mwah. Bye.
All right, bye.